Welcome to the North East Shadow MPC with Clive, Owen LLP, Recognition PR and the Northern Echo. In this session, we regularly talk to business leaders from different sectors about what their business outlook is like and how they think the real Bank of England Monetary Policy Committee should act on interest rates. This is our first meeting since the general election, so how has the results and the first few weeks of a new government impacted on the confidence of business? On Wednesday, the Federal Reserve in the US announces its own interest rate decision, and it seems it's not just a matter of whether officials will press for a rate cut, but how strong the rate cut will be. Forecasters believe the Bank of England won't follow suit and cut rates again before November. But how will the potential escalation of the Russian-Ukraine war affect the UK and global economy? And what about the UK inflation rate? It's going to be announced on Wednesday, after this meeting, but before the crucial MPC votes. Let's talk to some of our members to consider. We've got 5 representatives and me. I get to vote on this as well. So let's kick off with Carl Pemberton. Now, Carl, it works for active financial planners, chartered financial planners, so I should imagine that in advance of this budget, Carl, you're getting a lot of people who've got their own money invested a little bit antsy and worried about the budget.
Yeah, thanks, Graham. I think we're certainly busy at the moment, and very busy. And a lot of people that I speak to are also very, very busy at the moment too, which is, in one sense, is very, very good. You're right, though, that a lot of that work is from people who are panicking, worried and concerned ahead of this autumn budget in obviously about 6 weeks' time at the end of October. And I think it's the unknown, isn't it? I think it's fair to say that Labour are going to come at this situation from a different angle to how the Tories did. And I think there are going to be quite a few increases in taxation that are likely to affect many of us moving forward. And I think it's that nervousness of what is it actually going to look like. And, we've got lots of clients who, rightly so, are concerned. It's very difficult for us as advisors to try and proactively try and box off any of these rumours and speculation, because, as is probably always the case historically, not all of them come to fruition. So you can't just tear up plans and long-standing advice that we've given to clients and try and restart it now, because you just don't know what's there. But concern is there, and therefore my personal view is that if Labour are, let's say, quite aggressive in their stance from the budget, I think we're going to need extra mechanisms to try and boost confidence moving forward. So, yeah, it's a difficult time, isn't it?
Well, I certainly subscribe to that, and particularly the issue of confidence, because it seems to me that the government has over-talked the doom and gloom. Let's bring in Simon Hook. Simon, I know from my own work that work about transactions, trade deals, people selling their businesses, it increased a few months ago in advance of speculation about what would happen to things like capital gains tax and entrepreneurs relief and so on. But it's now slowing up because you couldn't get a deal across the line in 6 weeks, and a lot of the advisors are busy.
Yes, thanks, Graham. That's correct. Just to echo what Carl said, people are very nervous, and the media have sort of made it clear that there's going to be some bad news coming, and I think everyone appreciates that now. And you're correct, Graham, in the fact that there was a lot of people looking to sell the business earlier in the year due to wanting to get out of business, etc. But that has slowed down a lot because the deal wouldn't be done in time. What taxes they're going to pay, they need to build that into their pension planning. They need to build that into their futures. So we're seeing that very much slowed down. But we're also seeing, general clients slowing down in what they're spending. So if someone needs a new machine for a couple £100,000, they're not buying it yet because they just want to wait and see what happens in the next few weeks and months before they commit to big expenditure. So yes, it's busy, but there is no one taking risks at the moment. There's no one making the big decisions at the moment. They're just nervous and waiting to see what happens.
I think that's absolutely right. And it'd be interesting because, of course, the Bank of England sets interest rates for inflation first. That's its primary target. The general economy second. And we don't know what the inflation figure will be on Wednesday. But my own experience of talking to people in business is that that people do not think that this is the right moment to increase their prices. So I'm sceptical about whether the inflation figure will be dramatically different to last month. Any thoughts on that, Carl and Simon, before I move on?
I was going to say, I think inflation is pretty stable and is probably at a level that many of us would accept if that is true inflation. There's obviously big differences between CPI, RPI, and what they choose to put in that basket of goods, because obviously that changes as they want it to look, really. But I don't think, as you rightly said there, I don't think the Bank of England adjusting interest rates based on inflation is necessarily going to be the focus anymore. It's going to be based on the overall economy and how we can get it growing, which obviously the announcement in about 6 weeks is going to affect that. I think.
There was one inflation data point that I was quite interested in, and that is there's one known. We know that the energy price cap will go up by 10% in October. So it could affect inflation later in the year. So we might be in a window where the bank doesn't have chance to cut the interest rate if it wanted to for much longer, because inflation might start to tick up by natural consequences. Let's move to someone else. Let's go to Ryan. We've heard about personal investors. We've heard about business deals. What's the consumer saying?
The general advertising market continues to face its a mix of challenges. You've got the overall performance continues to be influenced by the broader economic climate. You've got the likes of the travel and hospitality sector in particular, who continue to remain cautious with their advertising spend. Similarly, the automotive industry, with its supply chain issues, seems to be leaning towards more conservative advertising strategies. And then, of course, you've got the big one, which is the retail sector, with traditional brick and mortar retail facing the biggest headwinds, linked, of course, with that continuing trend of consumers shifting to online sales. So I think critically the high street will be hoping for a positive festive period, albeit, I suspect, with fingers crossed. So, generally, the feedback that we get from businesses is that they're looking for stability and certainty, which, of course, isn't always possible following the change of government.
Okay. And we did have good growth figures, but it started to tank a little in July. So it just seems to be a bit stop-go, doesn't it? Let's bring in Donna James, because Donna, you're from Popular Select. Now, you do a lot of recruitment, particularly specialist recruitment.
We do.
And I noticed that the just today in one of the big broadsheet newspapers, they were talking about a 3.2% reduction in overall general vacancies, and that Make UK was saying that manufacturers are holding back on recruitment. Now, I know you have a specialist agency, but what is your overall view on recruitment at the moment?
Well, thank you, Graham. We've seen a challenging time in recruitment since the beginning of the year. We expected to pick up, but it's not really come through, and it's remained highly challenging through the summer. Of course, many recruitment decisions are long term, so putting the budget in 6 weeks' time aside, I think we've seen our clients struggle. They've not been recruiting at the levels that we've seen in the past. So the labour market in general has cooled off. Nationally, we've seen the number of vacancies declining. So if you remember in the spring, we were talking around the million mark, just over 1 million. Now we're down to 860,000 more or less. And we've got 1.4 million unemployed, so it's really cooled off. We've still got a big problem with the economically active. But the pressure on wages has come down from what we're seeing in our activity. Of course, wages are still growing at a higher rate than inflation, but that rate of increase has declined somewhat. So we're seeing a rate of wage growth at about 1.8%, 1.9% above inflation, as people are still trying to catch up on that cost of living crisis, and we've still got a lag on that. But just to confuse things a bit, those figures also include the one-off payment to the NHS and civil servant service. So, that inflates it a bit. So, not so worried about wage growth, but in short, it's challenging, not so much recruitment, things have cooled off.
Okay, so we've had an overview out on consumer, we've had an overview on recruitment, we've looked at wealth management, and we've looked at deals in the commercial sector. Let's have a look at the construction sector. John Cartwright, although you work with Hartlepool College, you're also involved with Constructing Excellence. What do your members in Constructing Excellence think the sentiment is like in construction at the moment?
Yeah, quite Graham. So despite the Department for Trade and Business stating that the construction industry's got a decline in terms of output towards, currently and towards the end of the year, construction businesses in the northeast, everything's business as usual. Everything seems to be good, really popular. We've still got lots of infrastructure projects going on, some repair and maintenance work that's going on around the region. House building, despite that, also predicting to decline towards the end of the year. It's got predicting for significant growth in the next couple of years. But I think the main thing that Constructing Excellence are looking to do at this moment in time is to fill the skills gap. So we're currently working with, obviously myself at the college and other organisations to try and fill the skills gap, because I know Donna touched on this early on, that there's been a decline in working with agency and recruitment organisations. That's definitely with construction. So I think they've cut some ties with recruitment and some agencies, relying on their own business, trying to keep their the current workforce and the guys and girls that's on the books at this moment in time, keeping them in work. But that's declined. But there's an acknowledgement that there needs to be closer ties with skills in and around the region to grow the obviously sustainable workforce.
Well, I think that's fantastic. That's a really positive and upbeat set of comments, John. So thank you very much. We're going to go now to the question about interest rates. And the question, first of all, for show of hands, is would any of the panel vote to increase interest rates? And the answer's no. And now, which members of the panel would vote to keep interest rates the same? By the way, I have a vote as well. So would any vote to keep interest rates the same this month? Oh, and one is yes. Okay. And would members of the panel vote to cut rates by 0.25 point this month? And we've got an overwhelming majority saying cut this month. Let's go round and find out why people would say what they said. My own view is that this is a window of opportunity to cut rates before inflation starts to go up again, and rates won't be able to be cut. And there are other reasons as well, but I think we should, if we were the real Bank of England, take the opportunity to give the economy its stimulus and maybe protect it against some difficult forces that are emerging. Ryan, what's the reason for your vote to stay the same? And you're on mute.
It was around stability. That's the key message that's coming through from businesses. I mean, whilst the economy is showing signs of resilience, there is still that concern around inflationary pressures still remaining present. And I think that businesses ultimately need stability right now, so that's why I vote Harold. All
right, that's fine. And next to Simon Hook from Clive, Owen LLP.
I just think it would be good to give a boost of confidence. We mentioned before about nervousness ahead of the budget. So let's have a, real force of strength and a boost of confidence to counteract that.
Carl, what's your view?
Yeah, very similar to Simon, to be fair. I think the nervousness ahead of the budget, I think we were in real, I'll say danger, but it's a tipping point, isn't it, about increasing taxation. If it's seen as going too far, then you can scare a lot of people away, and therefore real income into the exchequer can be lower. So I think we need to be seen to be on the front foot. I think we need to be seen as a progressive nation and giving that confidence to the consumer to invest and spend, which will hopefully give a bit of an oomph and detract away from potential increases in taxation that'll come at the end of next month.
Donna, what's your view?
Similar to Carl and fellow members of the panel, I don't like to run counter to fiscal measures. However, concerned about investment and giving the economy a boost of confidence, and to get things moving again. Growth has been very, very sticky. I think a cut in interest rates might encourage that investment, encourage that stability.
Also, I would say that with the Fed possibly going to cut, almost likely going to cut, the pound will rise as a result. So it might be better to be in harmony with the Fed at the moment. Carl, have you got a comment on that?
Yeah, I wouldn't have used the word harmony, to be fair. I would probably go a little bit further and say, obviously, America's got its own issues in multiple areas that we're probably all aware of. And I think us cutting interest rates first or being seen to be ahead of that curve actually puts the UK on a stronger footing rather than us following America.
Okay.
We're all fighting for business. We're all fighting for that investment. We all want people to part with their cash and invest here. So rather than being seen as followers to America, I think we've got an opportunity to potentially lead and do our own thing and let their economy do their own thing. And I think we've got to be a bit selfish in this situation.
And last but not least, John Cartwright, Construction Excellence. What was your reason for going for a cut?
Yeah, like I say, I think I agree with the guys before. Gives a bit of confidence to the consumer and the client, especially clients in construction industry. So if there's any projects that's looking to expand and get built up within the region, then I think that gives us a bit of confidence by 0.25%.
Thank you very much. Thank you all for taking part. That's it for this edition of the Shadow MPC with Clive, Owen LLP, Recognition PR and the Northern Echo.